So, now all that's left really is to play some excerpts from the mind files and essentially give my best quick advice, for if you did get involved to this, to where you weren't only tested and synced and maybe passively affected, but if you, perhaps are coming in a situation and you're deep military or, in some technological sector, had a clearance, anything like that. Like, I mean, if you think there was a deeper aspect, or anything, perhaps people that went into music entertainment, perhaps, work at a bakery. It doesn't really matter. If for any reason you have reason to believe this and you do, listen to this and I'll give you the best advice and help describe what they're doing and how this goes into the mind files, and basically try to help you, say what I can to help you identify with it, recognize it, and decouple yourself also from that kind of sync. Because again, there's a connection so they can affect it, but then there's also your internal mind files, which will interface actually, like these literally people, like for example, with those beast systems that people control, they interface and they're literally program compartments. It's just insane advanced technology, but some people that were involved with it and are gifted in certain ways are going to recognize this and realize, oh man. Now, coming from some NSA type things, they use people that are good at math, linguistics. They might have people on some military applications from the beginning, but everything is based on kind of structures and microcosm, macrocosm. They have different structures that are made that have been studied along with MK Ultra related doctors, which is kind of just like how the brain wants to store information. Essentially, there are also fractals, which is like a repeating structure, and that there's a lot of this is based on mnemonics, to where if you have this internal mind file system, it is based on the mnemonics and essentially little mnemonic tricks like linking two things together with like something weird might help you remember it better. To boil it down, there's a few strategies and stuff like that. But so they have studied and basically know the best ways for internal structures happen to be with mnemonic tricks, sometimes with stories and tales and scripts, programming scripts. You look into some of these age-old orders and aspects of it, and you see the colors and you see the patterns. And when it gets into the mind files and the programming, I think you're going to understand where internal worlds meet kind of storytelling and occult information and symbology. Okay, so again, this is the positive disintegration. I think you can see where this might come together for an internal world. The Mind Files installation will typically have a preparatory workbook that is completed prior, such as one with numbered boxes where you create different scenes, drawings, etc., for various feelings, emotions, memories, etc., which may have guidelines with colors. Okay, certain curriculum lessons that you've previously done, they might be used instead of the whole workbook. But essentially, what happens is they have you list a bunch of your different needs and desires, emotions, feelings, and different situations. Sometimes draw whole scenes, right? And they will use these to help you create your mind files, okay? So it will be a lesson plans throughout the year, or it will have been specifically in a workbook prior, okay? In the world of programming and metaprogramming, the human biocomputer, which is a John C. Lilly reference, or a host of other terms, the internal, embedded, imprinted, programmed systems, these neural networks, these neural pathways that are closed and opened that they were found to be effectively implemented when based on pre-existing geometric patterns, right? So pre-existing patterns like cubes, Rubik's cubes looking things, right? Okay, and mathematical fractals, okay? And a fractal is just a repeating structure that's like, it can be little, but if you stack a bunch together, it will make the same thing on a big scale, okay? And then they can be further divided and stored into compartments based on Ericksonian hypnotherapy style scripts. That means that, okay, so once you create like a whole internal structure of fractals, so like you can access a little part or a big part, right? And it's kind of like fractals are also like a hologram. One piece contains the whole, so everything is right there, like kind of a multi-dimensional aspect. Now, the Ericksonian scripts are kind of a script that goes with your psyche, that goes with your needs and wants and desires, right? So basically, an Ericksonian hypnotherapy scripts, which basically you kind of getting a story that goes with your psyche, can help further attribute little mnemonic tricks and stuff like that to these compartments to like further compartmentalize it so everything's easy to remember, so on and so forth, okay? So, you know, a subject will actively participate in creating this internal world, right? Using this script that goes along with your psyche, you help make it with all your past desires through the workbook. When you're like saying what you did over the summer, how you had fun, you might use that memory, right? All the stuff, including bad things, right? Including bad things or fears, right? These are all used, and then coupled with mnemonic principles, just simple little tricks to remember, okay? So essentially, that's just the positive disintegration. You remember from Fiona Barnett's example about the deliberate neural pathway, the neural network in EMDR, right? The disassociated, the structured dissociation, you know, in Bluebird, Manchurian Candidate, right? And you know, you just have your brain state in Monarch. It's, you know, dissociation of PC filing system, okay? And different things are done. So in all of these, this was Fiona Barnett's example. She had an internal system that she made, okay, and it was based on, you know, the Lady Freemasonic thing, and it has different colors and different symbols, right? And keep in mind, if you were raised in the Masons, that you learned all of this lore. You learned all of these tricks. You learned, you know, the story, right? And it helps you remember it. So keep in mind. And they had different compartments, one ritual abuse, she said, one for intellect, one with hypnosis, one with drugs, and one with soldier stuff. So she had different types of themes for different compartments, and each compartment has a different symbol and a different color, and it has a structure, right? It has a structure that is known. And, you know, you have the pentagon, you have the pentagram, so on and so forth. So there's mathematical principles and stuff like that. So just understand that a lot of this age-old, whether it be Luciferian, whether you want to call it occult stuff, that there is encoded either fractals or mathematical geometrical structures that make sense. A lot of them are linked to the Fibonacci sequence, right? The golden spiral pi, things like this. These can be utilized with the inverted theorem of Pattoli, and then basically that encircles them, and basically the inverted theorem of Pattoli, along with some of these pentagrams and hexagrams and pentagons, essentially mathematically make these dark, you know, these circles, these magical circles and whatnot, utilizing the Fibonacci sequence. Okay, so essentially these dark circles are using the Fibonacci sequence, the sequence that's found in all of life, so to speak, because they are willing it to creation. So that's what these people are doing. There's actually mathematical intention that is really deeply embedded into occult ideology and into stories and folklore, if that makes sense. So there's a lot in this. This is not just people with hocus pocus. There's a lot that goes into this. Again, you know, we are going into color coding chakras, and the color coding happened in the 70s, by the way, by a California scientist. It wasn't color coded before then. But anyways, the color coding goes easy to remember, chakras easy to divide, tree of life. Then you have them, you know, kind of down to earth, you know, survival, emotional, territorial, right? You know, input, output, sensory organs, shared physical medium or environment. We're talking about sensations, okay? We're talking about consciousness and energy, time, because parts of the brain affect the time, right? Right brain, experimental, awareness, consciousness, semantic, consciousness of form, left brain, analytical. Do you understand that these people, these age-old occults, have this mapped out? They teach all this in a way that can be passed down through stories. And there's actually like figurative and literal knowledge involved, but in some places you have to decode it. But anyways, the way that this is passed down makes it possible to remember, makes it possible to teach a child incorporates geometric things, patterns, shapes, colors that a child can remember, that a child will identify with, that a child can learn before he has fully developed speech even. So this can be started early. This is occult path working. Positive disintegration is scientific occult path working to where you completely stop someone's development through all sorts of crazy trauma, and then you basically path work them through rites and rituals, trials and initiations, rites of passage, and then eventually you build them up into a better being. And this goes back to Nietzsche, this goes back to, Ubermensch, this goes back to ideology, Luciferian ideology. They want to become God. They want to reach apotheosis. They believe they are better. And either you're with them or they are going to control you and you do what they say, or, right, they're blasting you with 5 hertz depression, okay? Janessa, this was the geometric model I was showing, and this is just an attempt to develop a conceptual model to synthesize, synchronize, and vitalize a man's interpretation of universal phenomena. Okay, so if you understand, like, this is just more people linked up with MK Ultra, right? This is just more people linked up with this stuff that we're, researching. Okay, we research every aspect of this. What can we make in a person's brain? Is it the Order of Freemasons? Is it the Eastern Star? Is it the, Pythagorean Order of Death with these shapes in this story? Or is it the Janessa model with some scientific stuff? You see what I'm saying? That's essentialism, reality, right? Is it the tree of life, what we showed? It doesn't matter. The point is, that whatever's effective, whatever you identify with and whatever you decide to create, because essentially these people, if you go to the program with that, they have identified you and want to use you. They want to bring you into the fold, and they think you're useful. Even if you don't think you're useful, there's something about you. And a lot of the most useful and most talented people don't see themselves as such. And it's a shame that so many people's talent was taken from them and darkened, But you can get away from that, and it's time to. It's just knowing is half the battle, more than half the battle, consciously knowing, because they get people when they're young and include them in this, because if they don't, they wouldn't continue the cycle. And the cycle's so sick that some people don't even continue the cycle anyways. And now we're going to listen to portions of this Mind Files to kind of really show you the concepts about creating these structures internal with the mind, and kind of helping you see how maybe you helped create your own, and you know what it is all along, and you can really see it, and then you control yourself. Snap out of the brainwave they have coupled to, if that's what they did to you. Get in your own protection. Stay away from Monroe Institute. Stay away from all this. You can get there in other ways, and be part of the survivor community, talk reasonably, and protect yourself and get healthy. We're also going to be talking about some of these 8 hertz devices that we're testing. Maybe that's something that's more of a solution. We're all going to come together and find better ways to help each other heal, to stay protected and safe, to live healthier transition, and to speak up in a sensible and reasonable manner to demand attention for immediate audit of the system and the corruption that's involved with this, because it's just crazy. So I'm going to play this Mind Files now.
To create your own unique mind file system to create your own unique Hello. It's now time to create your own unique mind file system for organizing and retrieving all the information you have saved in your memory banks so far. Using your mind file, you will be able to save, change, retrieve, or delete any data you wish, at any time, in any situation. You can use this period for creating new mind files, or you can simply change or reinforce existing ones. The choice is yours. Let's begin.
Okay, so, there alone, just the intro to making it. Obviously, you hear there's a tone to stimulate, and they're getting you in that brainwave state, and then it's time to create the mind files. Okay, now, most people have been preconditioned and already prepped for this in certain ways, keep in mind, and, multiple things. This isn't necessarily all done in, a pull-out enrichment classroom either. Like, there's obviously different places, and typically if anybody's involved with this, they're involved with many places, systematically throughout life. Okay, now we are going to skip to the next part, which is they spend a little while. Basically, there's a progressive relaxation, induction, and it changes the frequency to get you into the deep state. The part of accessing the system, it's very hard. They get you in the deep delta state. If you don't often go there, you will have a hard time maintaining consciousness, bridging back to that, and lose the information. It can be very hard. Some people, things can destabilize as well, so you have to be careful. But if it's going there, some people have set alarm during sleep, so on and so forth, at varying levels of alarm. Some people just practice getting to that state and coming out. But you can, if you don't practice going into delta and coming back out, you won't be able to access this. The stuff is people are practiced to get into the state. They're aided to get into the state, and that's where the stuff is stored. It takes active practice to be able to deal with this. And, it's just like anybody that meditates deep. You might accidentally fall asleep, so on and so forth. So anyways, getting now to the creation part. After their progressive relaxation. Leading into it.
Give your mind file a name or identifying symbol and place it in the center of your awareness. This is your mind file's core.
Okay. Name, symbol, core. Okay. So, like, name, symbol, core. All right. We got just think about some of the occult stuff. We got the symbols, we got the star, think about the tree of life. You understand here. Now, this can be anything. Let's say you want to make a public library with bookshelves. Like, do what you want, right? I'm not here to stop you, but, we continue on with some examples.
For example, you could imagine your core as a lamppost. Core.
Let me start to make sure I get that. I'm operating without hearing this part.
For example, you could imagine your core as a lamppost. The portion of information is a balloon, and the string on the balloon being tied to the lamppost for your link.
Okay, so you understand it can be anything, and you understand like the string in the balloon. Okay, so it's simple mnemonic tricks to where you attach knowledge to things like that, right? Like there's a famous example that uses like a pink elephant, I think. So like it's certain tricks to make you remember mnemonic principles, okay? And essentially, storylines can go in with that. Those utilize mnemonic principles and also keep you engaged, right? And so your comprehension is up. So that's where a lot of these occult principles tie in, but it's not necessarily that, because especially New Age, some people don't come from any sort of family or history of that, and it's not all the way used, especially getting more closer to now. A lot of that was getting cleaned up. Still bad controls being used, which is the problem, but I digress. So continuing on, we go to trying to get as close as possible.
Now, continue this process with the rest of the information you wish to work with. Your mind file can be as complex or as simple.
And that pretty much says it all. different people have different capacities, different people have different desires, plus depending on who was overseeing or handling you in the experience, there will be different levels of this. Is it a huge system? Does it need to be? Is it just that 5-point star with the different colors and the different symbols and each little thing? Which of those things have something? Which of those don't? Which of those are empty just in case they need to be something and are prepared? You see what I'm saying? And then obviously there will be larger systems. Like you look at the Genesis system. Okay, there's a lot with that. There's a lot of different areas and that could be repeated and built upon, what do you call it? Modular, in a modular manner, right? And then a lot of the government likes to do that, like to start it on a grid. The most famous would be 13 by 13 by 13, and that would be like NASA kids and people that go into that. Not everybody has the capacity or the ability to do that. These people are highly programmed and trained. There's a variety. Okay, so now going into really where this anchors in, okay? And this is a very light example, using this audio. So we're going now to...
Pause a moment now and get close to your mind file. Imagine walking around it. Touching it. What is its texture? How large is it? What feelings do you have when you look at it? Hold your mind file close to you.
All right, so you understand once you start to make it, you spend time there, okay? You want to explore it. You want to go inside and be able to go back inside and make that a place. And, it's much like building a house in real life. Say if you planned it from scratch, you built it in your mind before you built it there. And then say, like your childhood house, you lived there all your life. Well, that would be easier. Like you can go through it in your head and see in your mind, right? So you get this internal structure, right? Whether it be an actual structure you're inside and instructed to create, for example, some people, back in the day, especially when MK Ultra was operational, like they would have the girls make a dollhouse and would have a dollhouse in front of them and like show them, like pretend to be the doll, and they would play with the doll so they would identify with it and they would help participate, right? Or then you hear things about scripts, okay? Like, say like Wizard of Oz or something, and they're not told like, hey, this is Wizard of Oz. Like they're told the story like they are the character in it. Do you see what I'm saying? So they are immersed in it. So they might not even think Wizard of Oz because, it might be the same story with slightly switched. And by the way, these are all basic occult stories that are changed anyways. Just like Carl Jung and his whole like understanding and stuff like that, that's just free Masonic. It's just free Masonic stuff. Just rebranded, just wrote different. Again, that's what all these people are. All the leaders in the field just have translated, occult literature, essentially. So anyways, you get into that internal world, you really explore it and reinforce it. So is it the star with the different colors and the symbols? And you remember it because the stories, so you have all the, things instead of the balloon and the string, you have, the color of a room that you were in, right? With the symbols that were on the walls. You understand, like now you're understanding, do you see what this might be? It could be anything that you experienced, that you feel connected to and that you made, because that's what's part of it. And you hear in this, it's like, you want to have your senses and your feelings. What's the feelings attached to it? Well, that would usually have to do with the experience. Or if it was something more benign and you're working with the workbook, you're talking about the favorite thing that you did over summer, or it could be a fear, or it could have been a traumatic experience that happened. So do you understand now? Are you starting to understand, like, I hope this gives a better insight of what an internal world might be and how they're programming mind files. It could be as simple as a computer. It could be as simple as a filing cabinet system. It can be anything that you identify with and create, and it might be something that you secretly hate. It might be something, but it's going to be in there, and it will click, and you'll be like, oh, you have to realize that like it's something for you. It's not all of them, unfortunately. Like, they were also tricking little kids, and there are parts to where there's Stockholm syndrome, and they use attachment manipulation. They use every trick in the book against you. It's messed up. So anyways, we'll wrap this up here. And essentially,
working with your mind file. Now, imagine yourself in a real-life situation where you need to use it. Feel or see yourself being calm and at ease, easily bringing your mind file into your mind's eye. You are comfortable, confident, and autonomous. All you need to do is think of your mind file and begin to use it to its endless capacity. Imagine doing this now.
well, what I'd recommend doing is in the real world, being free and not letting people control you. And if you have been in one of these sick programs, see it. All you have to do is consciously unplug, and there'll be parts of you that were synced up with that, man. You see this stuff, and you're gonna decouple from it naturally. That's what happens. As soon as you find out, it begins the process, and it's painful. But with some support and healthy habits, people get through it every day, and more people are, and we're all coming together to affect positive change. So I hope something from this was helpful to inform you and possibly help you get free and free the next person.